So I want to think a little bit about total surplus in a market equilibrium. So if you recall from the previous slide, total surplus is equal to consumer surplus plus producer surplus. So that is the total benefit to both buyers and sellers in the market. And the whole point of this set of notes is to argue that this total surplus is largest at the competitive equilibrium, at the market equilibrium. So let's just see first what the total surplus is at the market equilibrium. So here we have a market. We have our supply and demand curve. We have our price and our quantities. And we know our market equilibrium is right here at a price of 90 and a quantity of 15. So here is our equilibrium quantity. And here is our equilibrium price. Now, we also know what the producer and consumer surpluses are. So our consumer surplus is the area between the demand curve and the price, between 0 and 15, the quantity. So our consumer surplus is this red triangle here. And we actually know how large the consumer surplus has to be. Our consumer surplus is 1/2 base times height, or 1/2, the base is 15, the height is 140 minus 90, or 50. And so this is equal to if you throw that into a calculator, this is the same thing as 25 times 15. And that value is 375. Our producer surplus is the area between the price and the supply curve from 0 to 15, 0 to the quantity. So our producer surplus is represented by the purple triangle. And the producer surplus here is 1/2 base, which is 15 still. Height is 80. So this is 1/2 of 40 times 15. Not 1/2. 40 times 15. Or 600. And this is always measured in dollars. So in this case, the total surplus is the consumer surplus plus the producer surplus, or 375 plus 600, or $975. So let's focus on which buyers consume the good. So at the equilibrium. So at our equilibrium, right here, every buyer whose willingness to pay is greater than or equal to $90 will buy the product. Anyone who is willing to pay $90 or more will buy the good. So any buyers whose willingness to pay is greater than $90 will buy. any buyers whose willingness to pay is less than $90 won't buy. And so, in this case, the buyers who value the goods the most are going to be the ones who buy the good. And that's a nice feature of the market equilibrium. Now let's think about the sellers. Any sellers whose cost is less than $90 will produce. Any sellers whose cost is greater than $90 won't produce. So what we're seeing here is that the buyers who value the goods the most buy the goods, and the sellers who produce the goods the cheapest produce the goods. So, in the next slide, let's think about what happens when quantity is greater than 15. So I'm going to argue that producer surplus, or total surplus, is smaller for quantities greater than 15 and smaller for quantities less than 15. Than 15. And the argument here is that if it's smaller when it's less than 15 and smaller than when it's greater than 15, the best and most and largest total surplus happens at a quantity of 15. So we need to have a fresh graph. So here's our graph again. And so let's take a quantity greater than 15. So when quantity is equal to 20, the cost of producing the marginal unit, that last unit, is right around $115. The value to consumers of the marginal unit when Q equals 20 is approximately $75. So what are we seeing? We're seeing that the marginal cost is greater than the marginal benefit to the consumers. And so if we were to reduce the quantity, we can increase total surplus, because now what's happening at quantities greater than 20 is, or rather greater than 15, is that the cost to sellers exceeds the value to buyers, and so this has a negative effect on total surplus. So we could increase total surplus by reducing Q. And you can make this argument for any value above the equilibrium value. So now let's look at a value below. So now suppose quantity is 10. At Q equals 10, we are. At Q equals 10, the value to consumers of that marginal unit is about $105. The value to producers, or rather the cost of producers, is $60. So if producers were to produce a little bit more, then they'd be able to capture more buyers, and the gap between the benefit or the value to consumers and the cost to producers will get smaller, and we'll be able to extract more surplus. So we can increase total surplus by increasing Q. The upshot of this is a nice statement about markets and market equilibrium. The result here is that the value of Q that maximizes total surplus has to be the equilibrium. So the market equilibrium quantity maximizes total surplus and at any other quantity total surplus can increase by moving toward the equilibrium quantity. So the upshot of this and the implication here is that the market equilibrium, this value here, where quantity supplied and quantity demanded are equal, is efficient. No other market outcome will achieve a higher level of total surplus. Governments can't come in and raise total surplus by changing this allocation. And so we're going to talk about a few instances where the market fails to reach this equilibrium. So this is our gold standard. This is what we want our market to achieve, because this is where benefit to society is as high as it can be. Now, there are reasons why the market doesn't move to this location. And for most of the rest of the class, that's really what we're going to be talking about. What happens when the market can't reach equilibrium? Or what are the instances where the market can't reach an equilibrium, and what governments can do to help the market reach a better allocation of resources.